Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Loving Lord Jesus, we pray that you will be lifted up as we come together as a community tonight, and that the saving gospel of grace will be shared with all the people that attend. I ask that this lifted studio session will be a place of faith, fun, and friends, but also that your name will be honoured in all that we do. Bless us in our night as we learn about capturing and creating with our phones. We gather in your name and are so grateful for your guidance. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Now it's time to introduce our special guest, Sonia Quintero. Sonia has years of experience freelancing and collaborating with internationally recognized Catholic influencers with almost 24,000 followers on Instagram. It's so amazing to hear Catholics using these social media apps and spreading Christ's word through everything that they do. A massive influence for myself and other people in this Zoom, I'm sure. Sonia, did you want to give a brief introduction for yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. How's it going? If you see me lean over for some coffee, it's because it's 1:30 in the morning, but I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, I live in California. I'm 22 years old and I'm a student at San Diego State University. And I've been taking pictures, I want to say since I was in middle school, but professionally for about 2 years now. So one of those years being in a full pandemic. So um, apart from that, I love weightlifting and hiking, and I'll share a little bit more about me as part of the presentation, and you'll learn a little bit more about how photography has come into my life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I guess a follow-up question would be, why does this form of creativity mean so much to you? And with that question, please feel free to take it away.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, so photography has always been a really, I want to say, important form of creating in my life. Um, I am from, so I grew up into, I don't know how well we know like California geography or this side of the world, because I know outside of California, I don't know what's going on. So I grew up in California, but my entire family is from Mexico. Luckily, I was able to grow up half and half. We had the immigration status to be able to go back and forth often, which was really nice. Um, if there's one thing I know, it's that my culture makes up so much of who I am and my values and the way I love Jesus and the way I experience faith and friendships and everything. Um, so with that, since my family had to leave, my parents, my sister, they had to leave Mexico, photos were the biggest form of connection we had to home, right? Um, it was this like fascination I had with sitting there and sifting through boxes and boxes. Like we had these boxes that were obviously made in the 80s. Like they had like this horrible floral print over it. Um, and it was so fun to be able to sit there with my parents and be like, well, who's this? And they're like, that's your great grandpa. And I'm like, who's this? And they're like, oh, you actually met him. That's your uncle. And yeah, I think from there as well, growing up with my mom, always with one of those like film cameras in my face at every moment, I just knew that photography was a great way to capture those moments in life that we want to save for later, right? And I'll go into that in a little bit. So yeah, also keep in mind, I did leave a lot of room for questions for you guys. So no question left unasked, please. We can go over anything you guys want. Photography is so broad. I mean, I could just go into the sentimental part behind it, or we can go into the cameras and lenses and iPhone photography part of it. So anything you guys want to know, once I'm done, we can dive right into it. I'm going to share my screen here. Let me see. Sorry, I just got a new computer because mine died. So I'm trying to.
Is it a Mac?
It is, yes. I swear they are made of paper mache now. Anything touches it wrong and they break. Let's see. Sorry, it has to read my finger for some reason.
I think sometimes what happens with the new Macs is they have to restart Zoom, so she should be back very shortly. Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that that was a thing. Tara.
It happened to me, so.
There you go.
There we go. It wouldn't be on brand without a technical difficulty for me.
Oh, good. Tara
There we
just
go.
told us that this happened to Max.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. You're paying for. All right. There we go. Can everyone see that?
That's good.
Yeah, good. Okay, awesome. So I think the way I wanted to go about this was everyday Catholic photography. Not everyone is, photographing adoration with all these lights and cameras and lenses, like I have been, right? But I think I've learned the most in the mundane moments of life when it comes to photography. Um, I'll go into a little bit. You can see my little faves here, my fave camera, lens. I started off on a film camera, funny enough, when I was in high school. Um, and from there, I was able to learn all the basics of like shutter speed. And I was doing the whole thing where you're like in the dark room trying to figure out how to put a roll in a developer and whatever. But the first camera I took photos on was on an iPod Touch. Does anyone remember what an iPod Touch is? Yeah, it was like this small, tiny, like 4 megapixel piece of camera on a piece of plastic. And I remember I had downloaded an app called Visco, and it has a lot of filters. If you guys know Visco, we love Visco. It's so user friendly. I still use it to this day on some of my pictures. Um, but from there, I got to learn a lot of the basics. And actually, by high school, I had gotten to work with Instagram. So this was back in 2014. And I had the awesome opportunity to work with Instagram and be one of their creators, and just go around my city taking pictures. I was already doing that, and Instagram was like, yo, we're trying to, show people that we're an app you should be paying attention to. This is before they were bought out by Facebook, by the way, because the moment they were bought out by Facebook, I lost all connection to them. But with that, I actually hit 40,000 followers by the time I was 17, I want to say, or 16. And how old are you guys around here? Can we put that in the chat? 19. Okay. I'm assuming 22. Okay. So whether you're 20, 22, 16, I feel like you are told that your dream is to have a lot of followers, right? And your dream is to be really popular and to have everyone love what you're posting online. And it was very much, I mean, yeah, I was like 17. So I was like, oh my gosh, I made it. Like, this is awesome. This is everything. And if we've learned one thing through Jesus, is that anything that isn't him that forms our identity is not going to lead us to good stuff, right? So from there, I was able to start doing marketing campaigns. I didn't even know what that meant, but I was taking photos for brands like Chipotle and Juicy Couture, and quickly I fell into this productivity state of photography. I had to create, I had to sell, right? And by the time I reached college, so 2 years later, I was like, man, I'm tired. I don't enjoy this anymore. I don't really have a style. I'm just pumping out stuff to see what sells. And I went into college, and if we know anything about the US, it's that they push a lot of the arts are not livable here. The arts are not a way to make a living. Coming from an immigrant family, once again, that is not what they want to hear you're going into. They want to hear you want to be a doctor or a lawyer. When I told my parents I wanted to be a photographer, they almost fainted. And from there, I said, I'm done with this. I don't care what gifts I have. I don't care what talents. I'm done doing this. I'm going straight into corporate and I'm going to deal with it from there. So, funny enough, going into college, I was not even Catholic. And a semester later, I had my conversion at that it started at a conference named Seek by Focus. I don't know if you guys know who Focus is. And from there, I had I don't even know you guys, because I was barely 18, about to be 19. No one asked for my age on my resume when I applied to their internship. No one asked what like year in school I was. So I ended up getting an internship with them as a photographer. And then I encountered a whole new side of photography because I had one job at this internship: capture Jesus through the camera. I had just fallen in love with the Catholic faith. I had just fallen in love with Jesus. And I was falling in love with photography through pursuing him, right? Because I was taking pictures at Mass, I was taking pictures at adoration of people having fun, of people laughing together. And I was like, man, this is kind of the best. This is kind of the best thing ever. So from there blossomed this, knowledge in my heart where I'm like, this is a gift I've been given and a gift I've been given to tweak and to make better. And it's just a wonderful way that I've been granted to pursue the Lord, right? Yeah, the nonprofits are really great for working volunteer. It was a great way to start. So here I put, my fave camera right now is the Sony. My fave lens is the Sigma 35, mostly because it's a very cheap version of the very expensive 35 lenses. And then I just added my favorite foods and things like that, so you guys could take a look at it. So you might be thinking, what are the basics of getting into Catholic photography, right? Or photographing as a Catholic? So it's actually super easy. Spend almost $6,000 on a camera, body, and lens. Become the Pope's best friend so you have all the gigs, and that's it. Super easy, guys. That's all you gotta do. I'm just kidding. Obviously I'm kidding. If it were that easy, I mean, oof, we'd all be doing it, right? So, okay, here are the actual photography basics I put together for the everyday Catholic person. So number one, it's gonna sound weird, but pretend no one is watching. So what I mean by this is what I said in the beginning. We're told that having all these followers and having all these eyes on our work is the goal, right? And the dream. But I've actually seen over and over again that the most meaningful work and the most beautiful photographs are ones you actually wouldn't think about posting on social media. So when you go out there and you just have your phone or you have a camera, what does everyone have around here? Do you guys have cameras? Do you have phones? If you want to type it in the chat. Yeah. Honestly, sometimes iPhones beat the camera. It's kind of wild nowadays, the newer ones. Awesome. iPhone, DSLR. Yeah, it's so easy to take pictures with your phone now. And with that, it's so easy to think that every picture we take has to go on social media, right? So as I said, pretend no one is watching. Ask yourself, if this were to go nowhere, what picture would I be taking? Or at what moment would I be taking out my phone? Or what would truly mean a lot to me? Like I mentioned in the beginning, it was those photos I was sifting through the boxes that like led me back to, wow, this is where I'm from. Wow, these are like the awesome memories I had and all these things. And at the end of the day, you get to look back on these moments and think, wow, I'm so glad I took my phone out for just 1 second and then put it away and was able to be in the moment. Because I made the mistake as a photographer, funny enough, when I go somewhere or when I'm on vacation, I'm like, I don't want to touch a camera. I don't want to touch a camera. I don't want to touch a phone. I don't want to hear it. And then I come back and 2 months later, I'm like, man, I really wish I had a picture with my friend at that one statue we saw. So it's all about finding a balance, right? Step number 2, focusing on the basics. So since a lot of us here are shooting on our phones or even DSLRs, it's really easy to get caught up with filters and with settings and with all of this like fancy stuff, right? I think it was great for me to have to start off all the way down from an iPod Touch, because you really had to learn what it meant to photograph. One thing I've seen a lot in my colleagues that are starting in photography, right? Because another misconception is that like you need the best top of the line camera. And you don't, you need an eye for what means a lot for you and for beauty and for wherever your heart is leading you, right? And I've seen when there's this overload of buttons and specs and high tech, it can be very hard to find your style. It can be very hard to find what brings you joy because you're focused on the 100 buttons on this camera, right? So the basics for me, I don't know if you guys want to write this down. The basics I'd say to focus on are composition, color, and light. I say those are the main ways to develop your style. Composition is, so if you look here, there's my friend Edbook. Composition, when I took this photo, I was like, the red in his shirt is really nice with the red and the umbrellas, right? There's also movement going on, and it looks really nice because it's like the sun is setting, so it's not too bright. So that's how those elements came into play. I was like, I want to position him right in the middle. And then you can like look up like rule of thirds and things like that, like the super, I feel like I've had every photography teacher ever just be like rule of thirds, and I'm like, wow, this is my time to fall asleep. Like I'm done. But here I thought like, what's the main event here? I'm like, Aguk is really happy at this church event with his Jesus shirt on, matching with his Jordans and his hat. I'm like, I'm gonna put him right in the center. So from there, after composition, I thought lighting. The thing with photography, especially event photography, is you have about 2 seconds to figure out what you're doing. And I think that's part of the thrill. Something's happening and you've got 2 seconds to do all the math in your head on what kind of settings you need, what lighting you need, and everything. Luckily, I think I was on my Sony and I had it on like an auto light detection, which really saved the photo because a couple photos after I was horrendously overexposing everything. And then from there, when I took this into Lightroom to edit it, right, I was like, wow, I really love these colors. I'm going to bring out the primary colors, and then bam, I had a picture, which I wish I had pulled up the original because it looked really bland compared to the edited one. So again, the basics: composition, lighting, and color. You can really play so much with those 3 things, and you'll start seeing what you like. I think going back to step 1, pretend no one is watching. Sometimes we're like, man, I wish like my feed were aesthetically looking like a certain way. And while that can be really fun, like you can totally set out to be like, I actually want to photograph so that I can capture a cohesive aesthetic. Find what you're looking for. If you want to capture the aesthetic of things, capture the aesthetic. If you want to capture moments and life, do that. It's more of what brings you joy and go from there, right? So then step 3 kind of brings everything together, and I say look for Jesus always. I do this like when I've traveled alone various times to like backpack through Europe and in Mexico, and I even one time, I don't know, like I took a train across the US. I don't know what I was thinking. If you know anything about our train system here, it is not well developed. I was like, it's gonna be so cute, like in the movies, and I'm just gonna sit in the little car and watch all the states go by. Um, but one thing I love when I travel alone is I enter this like state of prayer. And I enter the state of prayer when I'm photographing Catholic events as well, uh, where I sit there and I say, all right, these photos today are not about me. They're not about what I can do. They're not about my talent or my camera. They're about what Jesus is putting in front of me. And my only job is to take it, right? To freeze it in time. But if we look at it, it's all Jesus, right? I just froze it in time. I love doing the same thing through traveling with people. I love the like art of being a stranger. It is a little creepy because you'll see me like pointing my camera at people I don't know. I'll just be like, or like pretend that they can't see me. But I love capturing strangers, especially when I travel. I don't know what the, I want to say, social situation is in Australia, but as I'm sure you know, the social situation in the US is very polarizing, and people are on opposite ends of every spectrum at all times. Everything is a conflict. You're just like, man, I'm just not going to talk to anyone anymore. And what I love about focusing on strangers and focusing on people I don't know is that it kind of opens my heart to, wow, a lot of people lead a lot of different lives that I don't. And I will never know what they're going through, right? And they'll never know what I'm going through. And it challenges you to be more understanding. So you'll see someone with a funky outfit and be like, ew, that outfit is ugly. And then you'll notice it's like, oh wait, that shirt is obviously vintage. Maybe it was your grandma's, or maybe it was your great grandma's. Okay, those shoes, they're a little funky, but it brings them a lot of joy. That's actually kind of awesome that something like that could bring. So it kind of like challenges your brain to step outside of itself, which I think especially as young adults is so important, because we can kind of go into, I mean, like look at the older generations. They're stuck in one way of thinking. They're like, I ain't going anywhere. No one can tell me different. So when I go into photographing, and the way you can do this as well is just say like, Lord, lead me to what you want to see, right? And it's also kind of like an awesome way to add another form of prayer in your life. Add another form of where am I looking for Jesus in the mundane, in the day to day. And it was, I'll take it back to, I mean, the US barely had a lockdown and we're suffering the effects of it. But during the first lockdown, I really had a creative, just like explosion. um, the beginning of 2020 started with me getting my first client in another country. I went to Amsterdam to shoot an engagement. And it just only went up from there. I was shooting Catholic events across the country. I had been home exactly 2 days by March. I was traveling here and there, and bam, it all got shut down, right? And I faced this moment where I very much could have lost my photography business. Not photography, but the business part, you know, that buys my groceries. Um, and I had a moment where I was like, well, you know what? Like I'm healthy and I have Jesus. And if this is the end of that very short-lived photography business, this is the end. And if it's not, well, this is his will. And it led me to create in other ways. I started going back into my old photos, right? That hadn't seen the light in out of my hard drive in years. And re-editing them. I started going back to old Instagram posts and to all of this stuff that I hadn't touched in a very long time, and re-editing and reforming and redoing. Yeah, I love what you said, Jenny. Thank you. Show me what you want me to see and take a photo of. Yeah. And it's just this, I want to say, a contemplative state that I urge everyone to be in when it comes to being creative. What other type of creative art forms do you guys like to do? I know there's a lot of poets and there's a lot of like hand-drawn artists. I wish I could be a hand-drawn artist, and like so fun. Poetry. Yeah, I love that.
I know we've had a whole week, of lifted studio sessions. So we've had, journaling, we've had videography, music, all different, forms. So
Mhm,
speaking to the crowd here.
I know a
mhm.
few of them to paint, like Cat Giardino paints.
Nice. That's awesome. Dancers. Ooh, nice. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, and that's the cool thing about photography. I want to say there's so much inspiration you can take from different art forms. Because when I think of dancers, I think of movement, right? I think of, how like body outlines make something beautiful. Um, and when I think of poetry, I think of like all these words coming in and like making you feel something. And then with contemporary art and painting, yeah, like there's a picture. Oh man, I wish I had included it. I had like one job, you guys. There's a picture I took of a woman in adoration. And I don't share it often, and I definitely don't put it on social media. And this woman was bald because she had just gone through a couple of chemo rounds, and they weren't working. So this woman was this beautiful, like vibrant woman was passing away before our eyes, right? Um, and we were in adoration, and they were going around where you can touch, the cloak that's surrounding the monstrance. And I took a picture of this woman looking Jesus straight in the eye, weeping. Um, and with that, I saw the Bible passage where the hemorrhaging woman touches Jesus' cloak, right? And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, words in a book just became a picture, like a picture that like literally stops you in your tracks and you're like, whoa. Um, so I always say like, don't like, I always say like everyone can be a photographer. It sounds weird. It won't be good for my clients, so don't come steal my clients. Because I always say I'm like, I push a button and I hope for the best. But really, at the end of the day, whatever art form you choose to engage the most with, photography fits in there somehow. And I think that's the really cool thing about it, right? And you can really just implement those little things throughout your life. And who knows, by next year, you can look back at your iPhone memories and you have pictures that mean a lot to you, right? Just because in the same way that it's easy to take a picture, I think it's so easy not to take a picture. And at the end of the day, it's like we want those memories and we want those places where Jesus showed us love and showed us life and light and color and all the things. So I think now I want to open up to questions. You guys can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat and I can read the chat first, whatever you're comfortable with. And you can go anywhere you want with the questions. Even you can even ask me how many SD cards I've broken by accident, and it's way too many.
I have a question. I guess I'll start everyone off. So I know you say that, there's so much technology available and we shouldn't always focus on all of it at once in terms of filters or, the aesthetic or what you want to capture. But seeing, your Instagram is in a beautiful theme and it all works so cohesively. Do you still focus a lot on all of those aspects, or do you just find that God puts you in this place in time to just capture him and just freeze it in time, the way you said?
Yeah, I'd say to touch on the cohesive part, that took a really long time. Um, I was definitely just point and shooting at whatever came my way, editing it in whatever way I wanted to that day. It's really weird because some days I'm like, everything must be bright, and other days I'm like, everything must be so dark. Um, so I think with all of that available, it's super funny because I'll have photographers ask me like, "Oh, I have the new 70DX4. What are you shooting on?" And sometimes I'll be like, "I honestly forgot. Let me check." And at the end of the day, I think the way I go about it is I will look at pictures or at photographers I really like, and I'll do like a backtrack. I'll say, okay, what kind of camera did they use? What kind of editing did they use? What was their process behind it? So even though the tech side of photography is really fun, um, I think I focus more on what work of others inspires me or what other art inspires me and how can I backtrack from there to get there myself in my own style. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you so much. Beautiful.
Let me see.
Hello. I have a question on how do you store your photos? Because I feel like I just chuck everything from my photos app and then like put it into a hard drive. But if I ever
Mhm.
want to go back to it, I can't find them because I've just dumped them all in there. So
Yeah, no, I totally feel that. I have like yeah, the OneDrive and iCloud looks like a toddler got held on my phone.
yeah.
Um, I would say I like the favorites feature if you're on your iPhone. I like favoriting them and then putting them in like maybe monthly collages or even like 3 to 6 months at a time. Um, from there, if I'm looking at an actual like camera with SD cards and memories like that, I like buying um, terabyte hard drives. They're a little expensive, but I've had mine for 3 years and it's nowhere near running out. Um, so that's definitely something you can see as an investment. I don't know how much a terabyte or two would cost in Australia. I think here they go on sale all the time. So I might have gotten mine for like 60 US dollars or 70 US dollars. And those are nice because they're like these heavy duty like blocks. And you might be thinking it's like a grandpa thing. But if you don't want to sit there and sift, because personally I like going back and just sifting through like all of these photos. But if you are more of an organized person, I definitely say the favorites and by month because you can kind of in your brain locate June of last year, you know. But if you're like June 4th of 2020, you're like, oh, well, the heck was June 4th?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sonia.
Mm.
I've got a question, more
Mhm.
about travel, and I know I'm not sure when international travel is going to be happening
Mm.
again. But any plans for coming to Australia and, taking some photos here?
Honestly, guys, when I tell you, oh my gosh. Okay, so another little niche thing, I love airplanes a lot. I don't know what it is about airplanes. I love airplanes. I have like a checklist. And my last one on the checklist is the Airbus A380, which is the two-floor guy, the massive one. Um, and that one flies to Sydney. And I kid you not, the year we went into lockdown last year, I had a ticket to Australia because I wanted to, it was so cheap. I wanted to ride that airplane so bad. That, and I do have family in Australia. Funny enough, I have a cousin who moved out there and she's getting married. So the plan was for me to go take pictures of her getting married. If it opens up, I know that they're putting the US in like every like cautionary list ever, and they have every right to. People are not getting vaccinated here. Um, but yeah, I would love to go to Australia. It's always been like it's just like so foreign over here. It's like the other side of the world. I remember I went to Argentina, and it's the same case where it's like the seasons are opposite to us. I went to Argentina in July and I was freezing my butt off. And I was like, is this how Australia feels? So I would definitely love to go.
Yeah, Sonia, you're totally welcome here. I'm sure we could probably have a meetup and
Yeah,
we
that'd
can
be
show
so
you
fun.
some of the pictures we took and we're like
Heck yeah.
inspired by you.
Yeah, that'd be so fun. Awesome. Does anyone have any more questions, comments, stories of their own they want to share?
I've got a question. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. How do you say your name? Gary?
Jerry.
Gary?
That's all good. I was wondering what you think about presets and in terms of like with social media, things looking cohesive versus like creative variance and expression and contrast. How do you what do you prefer and like what are the things that have worked for like brands and other organizations, influencers you've worked with?
Mm-hmm. I definitely have a love-hate relationship with presets. I think they can be very trendy at times, and you can look back and be like, what the heck was I thinking? Making myself look orange. So I say at the same time, like go all in with the presets, just save a regular copy of your photo, right? If you have the original copy, I mean, you can't mess up really from there. So I like the presets. I love how they kind of speak for that moment in time. I don't know if you've seen right now, it's like the oranges and the teals are very much, I'd say, in trend. I remember when I was a teenager, it was like dark and moody and faded. So I'd say, play with it, but at the end of the day, try to find what you like. I think going into wedding photography and lifestyle photography as a business, it was hard for me not to jump in straight to what was trending. And I had to remind myself, I want to say like a couple months ago, and sit down and remake my editing process because my editing process was very trendy. And I had to sit there and I realized, I'm like, wait, these people are going to be showing their grandkids this. Is the focus here the editing, or is the focus here what's happening in the picture? So with that, I kind of combined both, where I tried to make photos look more natural, but still implement the things I liked from presets today, like the muted tones and the creams and things like that. So yeah, I'd say go all in, save a copy of the original picture, and you really can't mess up from there.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, thank you for asking. Awesome. I think I think one other person had a question. Or maybe I'm hearing things. Awesome. Let's see. Tips on how to take a good photo on your phone. I don't know if it's a setting the phone already comes with, but you can see a grid on most phone. Do you guys see that when you open your camera? Let me see. Yeah, I think I see mine when I open my camera. It's like this little grid part here. I always focus on the grid. Like I said, composition. You want to put someone in the middle or in the side of the grid. My favorite is seeing like your mom try to take a picture and she like zooms in and she does the like, and suddenly you're super grainy. Little things like that. It's like, don't zoom in, take 2 steps forward. Or with the phone, it actually looks better to crop it after if you want to zoom in somewhere. Other things can be, I think the only 2 photo apps I've ever used and still use to this day are Afterlight and Visco. So I'll put that here in the chat. Afterlight and Visco. I really like those because there's a bunch of technicalities that I cannot say off the top of my head that happen when you like, yes, Visco. I've been a fan of Visco for like 10 years now. There's a thing that happens to your pictures when you go from phone to computer to phone to Instagram or to Dropbox or to Drive. The less machines you can run that picture through, the better, because the pixels can get a bit mixed up or blurry in that sense. So I like being able to edit from my phone on my phone. So Afterlight and Visco really helped me out. A lot of these, like we were just talking about the presets, a lot of these apps have sliders for the presets, so you can make it less intense. And it kind of brings that element that I said where it still keeps the original photo a bit, but it adds that preset look you're looking for. So yeah, I'd say focus on the grid when you're taking the picture itself, and also play around a lot. It took a lot of me like being on the floor and like putting things towards the light and kind of train your eye. I want to say, and in my brain, everything kind of looks like a puzzle when I'm putting things together. Ask yourself, what if I took 2 steps to the right? Would the lighting of this thing look better? You know, if I wanted to take a picture of my outfit and I actually turned around towards the window, would it look better? If I put it down lower, it's like you want to play with all these things. Let me see, is it true that iPhone is better for Instagram? I think iPhone is better for most things. I'm not too happy with Apple. Again, I just had to buy a new computer. That was a lot of money. I'm not sure because what are the popular phone brands in Australia? Because here we have iPhone and like LG, I believe, is
We have iPhones, Samsungs, Pixels. Yeah, Christy says iPhone versus Samsung at the moment.
Okay, iPhone versus Samsung. Yeah, so the one thing I would do is Google the settings you want your photos on, like specifically for Samsung. And even for an iPhone, sometimes something that happens, and I've had it happen to me on my like photography Instagram, you'll post the photo and it will look like a potato ticket. It will look like you ran it through a shredder and pieced it back together and then posted it. And when you've paid a lot of money for your cameras, you don't want to be publicizing a potato picture, right? But I know this can happen across a lot of phones. So what I've heard other photographers do, because there's a lot of photographers from, I want to say Mexico and South America who don't operate on iPhone systems. And their photos still go up beautifully. They just have to look up the certain settings their phone has to be on. So I assure you there is a YouTube video or a Google link out there that can tell you that information. And then from there, you can post a phone photo and make it look 10 times better when like someone sees it through Instagram. Oh, Joan, okay, Joan T asks, from your experience from when you were learning photography to possibly even now, could you share any tips on how you handle criticism of your work and also maybe moments of self-doubt? Oof, that's a great question. That is a great question. I think our greatest struggle as young adults and as young adults who are creative is pride, right? While we can take pride in the wonderful work we're doing, we must not only take pride from that wonderful work we're doing, right? We can also take humility and learning a lesson and learning a virtue like patience. I'd say at the beginning of my photography career, I was so blessed to have these Catholic creatives by my side. And if you ever think about reaching out to me or to another creative that you're really like feel like seen by, whether it be through poetry or dance, and whether you share the same faith or the same craft, reach out and ask. Like, people love talking about these things. I mean, look at me, I've been going on for forever. From the beginning, I talk about this man so often. You can find, I want to say, Applegate and Josh Shapoff. This is the same guy. Josh Applegate was a campus minister at the campus I was at when I moved to Colorado. And he was also an incredible photographer, Catholic and just in general. And what's funny is that we actually have polar opposite styles. I love muted tones and things looking like one color. And he is very much, you think you're looking at this image in real time. He captures skin tones and composition and life so well, you literally think you're there. That's awesome. And one thing Josh did well was pointing out where he thought I could do better, right? And as you're growing alongside other people in your communities, it's important not to impose, well, I think this looks better, or I think this is better. It's actually, I think you can do better in these areas, right? So he never looked at my picture and said, I think it's ugly. I would have been devastated. But he did look at my picture and say, actually, I've seen you do better work on your lighting in this photograph. Why don't you try that again and just try what you did on that photograph? Or he'd also say, you know what, I've seen you like go about it a different way. I think this would have been, yeah, it's constructive criticism, right? And in the beginning, it is easy to say like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible photographer. He is telling me this because I am the worst, and like just go down the spiral. But at the same time, if you've applied that groundwork of developing your style, the criticism makes your work becomes less, I want to say, weak to criticism. Because if it isn't your style, and let's say you're copying another creator or you're copying something you saw and you're not fully 100% invested in, when someone criticizes it, it will be very weak and you will feel very much attacked, right? Because this isn't something you're even wholeheartedly behind. But once it is your style and someone comes for it, and it's not someone who you look up to or respect, you'll be like, okay, it's a difference in opinion. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. And that actually didn't happen to me not too long ago. I was on this high. I was booking clients left and right. I'm like, it's finally happening. It's happening. I pay a lot of taxes, but it's happening. And I was feeling so good about the art I was putting out and about the experience I was giving clients. I love everyone I've ever worked with photography. I think it's a super awesome thing to be able to join two people or anyone on such an important day that they want to photograph it, right? And I joined these people on an important day to photograph. And the message I got back was, these are terrible. We do not like these. These look nothing like what you've produced with other people. And I was like, oh, I was like, man down. And that wasn't constructive criticism. That was just, and it was coming from another photographer who said, I thought you were better. And I was like, oh, let's backtrack there. I would not have said that, but okay. And at that moment, I had two options, right? I could give into the temptation of, oh my gosh, I don't belong here. Oh my gosh, everything I've worked for, like, if one person doesn't like it, like it's over. And I looked back and I was like, well, if I think about it, this is 1 in 100 people that have been very happy with my work. And it's a very real thing. Someone out there could very much not be willing to accept or to love your work, right? And at the end of the day, like, haters got to be your motivators, man. That's what I always say. But in all seriousness, because I had that 2 years under my belt of working on this craft and going back, and when things didn't work out, trying it again over and over again, I could distinguish, I'm not terrible. You just didn't like my work. And that's okay. And one thing I say a lot when clients are coming to me is that I very well might not be their cup of tea, and that is perfectly fine. As a photographer who recognizes the value in photographs, I want to find you someone who you get so excited about, right? So same thing. Your work just isn't exciting that certain person, and that's completely fine. Maybe they're into something totally different. And that's the beauty of art, right? It's like some people are gonna love it, some people are not. Take what you can from the situation. Awesome. I think that's all I have to say. Does anyone else have any other questions to wrap up?
No
I can
more.
tell you. Mhm.
Well, thank you so much. Like, that was
You
fantastic.
guys.
I know I'm ready to go, and like you said, sort through all my old photos so I can, find God in them and see where the lighting, where he's presented himself to me. Like I'm sure everyone else would be too. Does anyone want to share one main takeaway from tonight? It doesn't have to be a question, because I know we've kind of exhausted that outlet, but if you just wanted to share, the most, standout thing that you've learned tonight. Christy can't wait to take more photos.
Awesome. And I'm also putting my email in the chat if you guys have any questions or anything. My Instagram DMs are always a disaster. Don't ask. I don't know how to fix it. So you guys can go in there and ask anything you might questions
Thank you
about.
much.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us tonight. I know it's really, getting quite late where you are, so I don't want to.
I'm a night owl.
But yeah, we're just very grateful that you've given your time to be with us tonight on our final night of the studio sessions. I know it's been so fruitful, and people are going to go away and be ready to take photos of everything that moves now. So thank you.
Yeah. And if you're stuck inside, I mean, you guys would be surprised at things you can take pictures of inside.
Exactly.
Take a lot of selfies.
Beautiful. Well, Quayne, did you